Good afternoon. Isn't this show a breath of fresh air? So, welcome to the American University at the Capstone Art Center. In particular, you are in the Alper Initiative for Washington Art, which is dedicated to showing and educating about Washington artists. And we are so happy to have Joe Holston with us today in this really spectacular show. Joe's work can be found in all kinds of public collections, including the Smithsonian American Art Museum, the Phillips Collection, Baltimore Museum of Art, Library of Congress, Yale University Art Gallery, Butler Institute of American Art. I could go on and on and on. He's known as a painter and printmaker who celebrates Black life, history, and culture. And I first got to know your work through the Color and Freedom work, Journey Along the Underground Railroad, consisting of 50 paintings, etchings, and drawings. So his work is using kind of abstraction, kind of a cubistic kind of form. We'll get into that a little later. What I found when I came to his studios, I discovered all this work that was really had to do with music. And so it wasn't so much about the struggle and the work, but it was really kind of joyous and also very personal to Joe. So I was really happy to be able to present this work. And if you want to see some of the other work, you go to Amy Kasselot Gallery in Bethesda, and there's a pretty terrific show there as well. I'm going to introduce Joe, and he's going to talk for a little bit, and then I will ask him some questions, and then hopefully we can have a conversation here while we got him here in front of us. So let's take advantage of this great opportunity. Joe, take it away.
Tested, 1, 2, 3. Yes, you got my voice. Yes, yes. Thank you very much for coming. Do we have any artists in here? Okay, okay. That's fantastic. Yes, yes. And also, I like to go back a few years. I like to go back younger than 5 years old. I managed to get my mother's attention, and 1 out of 6 children, you had to do that. You had to be very clever. So I had to get my mother's attention, and my mother did also have artistic ability, and I got my mother to draw, and we participated in drawing. This is younger than 5 years old, and I really got a lot out of that, and I utilized her. I wanted to get her away from the other. And so that was my strategy, and she kind of liked that very much. So I really got a lot out of that. So that took me to trying to grow as an artist, but I didn't know that. I didn't know I wanted to be an artist. All I know is that I used to see forms, trees and clouds and everything like that. And my mother used to always ask me, well, I used to go off I was sort of like I didn't like dealing with a lot of people, so I was a recluse, you know. I kind of went all by myself in the woods, traveled around, and disappeared. Got in a lot of trouble because I used to spend a lot of time by myself in the woods. And also I used to study the clouds, the cloud formations, and used to study the trees, and I got a lot out of the trees dancing in the wind and all of that. So that was a fantastic memory that I had dealing with art, and I didn't realize that I was that deep in creating art until later on in my life. So I went to closely in let me jump up to about the fact that I went to school, BCC, for 1 year. Then family moved to Washington, and I went to McKinley Tech for 1 year. And then I ran into a young man when we moved to Washington, D.C. I ran into a young man, and he told me that he was going to Chamberlain Vocational High School, and he wanted to take me to see the teacher because he thought I had artistic ability. And I said, okay, that sounds good, but I'll tell my mother that I was going to go to Chamberlain and check out what the teacher had to offer as far as me being a student. Now, remember I was in the 12th grade. I just finished the 11th grade, and I was on my way to last year in high school. I went back and told my mother, I was very excited. I said, Mother, I got an invitation to go to speak to the teacher, and it's possible that they might get me into school and I can be an artist. And my mother told me, said, no. No. I want you to, and by this time, you know, I was ready to go to the 12th grade. And my mother told me, said, I want you to finish school and get the hell out of my house. I said, Mother. So what I did was, I went to Chamberlain anyway and took the test. Unbeknownst to my mother, I was supposed to be in school, but I went to Chamberlain and took the test. And met Mr. Washburn, and we hit it off very well. I took the test. I had to draw a stool, and for some reason, Mr. Washburn thought it was great. And so he told me, he started talking to me about coming to school. And he told me that school starts a certain date, and it was a few weeks ahead. And I told him, I said, well, I have a job to do. I had to convince my mother. And so I told him, I said, okay, well, I'll go ahead and sign up. Then I'll deal with my mother later on. Which I did. I went home and told my mother, so I have some good news and bad news for you. The good news is I am going to go to Chamberlain and learn advertising art. I will get out and I will work to be an advertising artist. And then she said, you mean you went to Chamberlain and I didn't know it? I said, but Mr. Washburn told me that I would get a job soon as I get out of school. And she said, okay. But I told her that this was a postgraduate course that I had to take. So that means that your postgraduate course, I had to take the 3 years, 3 years of advertising art. And all she could do was just shake her head, and she dealt with it. But she was very supportive, and she hung in there with me. And I ended up working at Sears. They hired me right away as soon as I graduated, and I worked for Sears a while. But I didn't. Advertising art wasn't my thing. I wanted to be a painter. So I spent a lot of time studying it, going to life classes, and I always wanted to be a portrait painter. I guess in here you don't see the portraits, but we'll get to that part. And it was quite a journey learning how to be a painter. And it was, I think what I did was I was so bent on being an artist. I just managed to just figure out how to make it. And one thing about it, you can be an artist several different ways. I couldn't afford to be an artist, go out and pay a lot of teachers and had them to give me all the lessons that I needed. But the fact was that I managed to put a lot of energy in painting. So it took me to a point where I started out selling my work. I met my now wife, Sharon. We sold my work at malls and wherever you could put an exhibit up and sell the art. That's exactly what I did. And I feel sorry for Sharon because she had to hang with me. She had a nice, good government job. She was committed and she worked every single day, 5 days a week. And then here I come with my paint and everything and said, I got a show. We have a show on Saturday. So she's out working with me, helping me out on Saturday and also on Sunday. And then she had to go back to work on Monday. I just really, my heart goes out to her. But she kind of helped me get through the kind of energy that I had to have in order for me to totally focus on art. And so I have to be very, very appreciative of that. So what the career just took me to a point where my whole career just evolved, and my most important thing is finding my own signature. And when you're an artist and you see all kind of art out there, you don't know which way to go. But the fact was, my study the clouds and the trees and blowing in the breeze and everything, that gave me a lot of energy, because somewhat what you see on the wall now goes back to not focusing on the later ones, the ones that I signed in 24, the later ones. It's sort of suggestive, and it was an honor for people to compliment on a painting with no features. But someone came up to me and said, "Gee, I just love that. Looking at something, a work with no features and everything, I just love that expression." And I said, that is quite a compliment, and I'm going to tell everybody about your beautiful compliment. So this is where we are today. I don't know where I'm going from here. I mean, it's just the fact that hey, I've been around a long time, but the beauty of creating art has been something I loved all my life. And my mother used to always tell me, said, "Okay, now when you go to school, you pay attention to the teacher." And I used to always get in trouble because I wasn't paying attention to the teacher. I was looking out the window at the beautiful cloud formation. And all the time I can hear the teacher now, "Joseph, pay attention." So that's what, that's the beauty of it. And I think they felt that, what can they do with me? So yeah, would you like to pick up from here?
Sure, I can follow that. About 10 years ago, 10 years ago, the Phillips Collection had a show called, what was it called? It was based on the Jacob Lawrence series, the Great Migration series. It was called, I forget what it's called, Curated something. What's the name of it? Anyway, they invited Joseph to participate in that show, and you did panel 61, I understand, called Facing the Future, I believe. And I was wondering, in that painting, it really seems to be, you're sort of focusing on education, and training, and sort of, I think it diverged a little bit from some of the other panels, but you were focusing on what you could do now, I think is a part of it. While the migration series is more sort of struggle and survival, this was something. What were you going to do about it? Or where could you go now? What could you put in your hands? And that would be education. get you prepared. But I'm interested in your education because I think you told me that after your training in the advertising arts, you actually had the will and the energy and the dedication to go take correspondence courses in art, just to get that training.
Yes, yes. I think I was a permanent student, a permanent art student. And I always felt that I could always learn something. And so that's how I was so committed, was just to, for some reason or another, art form to me was so dear and close. So, and of course, learning is fantastic because you have a way to communicate, and you're not, a lot of times you're not speaking to each other, but you are speaking to each other. And that's the beauty of it. Since I always wanted to go off on my own, I'm definitely an introvert, and I always spend a lot of time on my own. So that's how I managed to pull out a lot of energy.
So let's talk about call and response. This is the work in this room now. First thing I'd like to know is, was this work with music going on at the same time you were doing the other work? Is it parallel, or something always an interest, or is it something you started to focus on?
If I'm doing paintings, that's what I concentrate on. If I'm doing etchings, I'll concentrate on etchings. So I'm not a person that will jump all over the place, doing one thing one day, and the next day I'm doing something else. Because I have to compile the energy. And when I compile the energy, I'm doing a lot of studies that can help me drive the theme. So yeah, you may see when I'm doing etchings, you might see me creating it's dirty. Etchings, I mean, you get ink all over under your nails and everything. So it's very, very difficult to pick up a paintbrush and do a painting the next day. I had to take some time off. Yes.
So, what is this? What is music? What does it mean to you? Why did you focus on this approach? I mean, first of all, it's very difficult. There are very few artists I know who successfully captured what it is for musicians to make music, and for music itself in a visual form. But this seems really to be very successful. But why did you jump so deeply into this?
I didn't learn a lot about African American art growing up. It just wasn't around me. I've been around a long time, and that's what I just did not have when I started discovering art and music, then I said, of course, to myself, Joe, you have to create some work that you can relate to. Something that you can communicate with people that understand where you were coming from. So that's when I began to have a conversation as far as people understanding from my perspective, being black and being able to communicate in a way that if you're black, then of course you communicate, you're making statements that and gestures about the fact that you know, oh yeah, that looks like you know, African American musician doing that thing. So that's how I try to communicate. Hope I answered your question.
So let's talk about the style that you've evolved over this period of time. One thing I've noticed is that you can always, all your subjects are identifiable. You're not doing it purely as abstraction. And then again, your ability to capture what goes on between musicians, I think is just really is a stunning achievement. Why, again, I'll sort of, what would you like the viewer to come away from looking what you saw in music and communicating?
I want the viewer to feel, I want them not to look at the keyboards. You know, that's why I want to put keys, put keys on the piano. I wanted them to feel what is coming, the art that's coming from it. So that's, and it's so interesting because I managed to get away using fewer details in the work and being able to make a statement. One of the pieces in the show is jazz, and I think that was done, I think in the 90s, early 90s or something like that. And that piece, you can see that I was making a transition because you see more detail in that work.
Which work is that?
The screen print.
Okay. Down at the end?
Yes, that one. So that's gives you a good understanding. 2024 and jazz was in the early 90s, right, Shannon? Jazz. Okay. Yeah. All right. I don't want to get it wrong, but yeah. But the years between jazz and what I'm doing now, you know, I got the same kind of energy out of it. But it was nice to be able to show the audience that I can go with less and communicate. And that's the beauty of creating art, because you can go in the direction you want to go.
You know, I say a lot that art is not a universal language, that, you know, that you need to know something about the culture that's producing it otherwise. But I'm not sure that's true with you. I mean, because I think these can pretty much speak people who may not have, you know, a lot of background information, but I think they can get to the spirit of what you're doing.
Thank you very much.
That's unusual. Are there anybody have a question they'd like to pose? There's a couple in the back there. Tricia, thank you.
Mr. Holston, your work is awesome. I see a lot of movement in every piece. Nothing is static, so that's music right there. And then your figures, the heads, I'm just saying dancing notes all over the place. But what I wanted to ask you was, I was really interested in your introverted comment, and as it relates specifically to your early years of training. My husband and I met in art and design school, and there was a whole lot of, almost like a pinball machine when we were working, where everybody's bouncing off of each other. Each artist is like just drawing energy and pinging off of somebody, and oh, that looks great, oh, blah, blah, blah. And you're figuring out what your signature style is. I'm just interested in how that works for somebody who's very introverted. Were you drawing energy from other students at all, or were you mostly just sort of figuring out how you wanted to express yourself, sort of in your own world?
No, I get inspiration from other artists. I draw energy from other artists. I can't explain how I managed to connect it, being as close as I am, you know, but the fact that I managed to communicate with artists in a way, I managed to speak and talk and share information and everything. So I don't know how it changed from the communication part of it and what goes into the soul. I don't know how that, but I know it's very important.
But you were drawing it.
Yes. So yes.
I have a question about your relationship with
Become
music.
like.
The question has to do with your relationship with music. There's some musicians who say that they see color when they hear music. And I'm wondering if the reverse happens. As you hear music, does that direct you to specific colors? Is there any kind? Pharrell is one who really talks about that a lot. And I'm wondering if that is a phenomenon or that you've experienced.
Yes, we are definitely communicate in a way where he is an artist, I am an artist, and I see color in his music, and he sees music in my color, in my art, and it's so interesting, but it's very inspirational. I mean, I just love it. You know, I love to communicate with musicians because they have a different perspective. And I always found myself, oh yeah, I see now. But that's the beauty of it. Anybody else?
Where can we find it? Where can we find panel 61? I would love to see that. Is that the Phillips or?
What was that question again?
Panel 61.
Uh-huh.
You have to come over. Let's see. If you go online, you can see the image when you go to the Phillips Collection.
Yes, Sharon?
No, I was just going to say that it was just used on the cover of a publication issued by the American Academy of Sciences just within the last, 6 weeks or so. And it was about education, but they had a colleague of mine had seen the painting hanging in our home and thought that it was entirely appropriate for a recent publication that they were planning to issue and asked for permission to use it. So,
Thank you very much.
I have a quick question. Maybe it's not a quick answer, but we're entering a new era. We've entered a new era. And I wanted to know what you think about artists starting out now in, you've worked in isolation and you've been a loner, and looking at the clouds and the trees is more beautiful than listening to the noise around us. But there's tremendous noise now. How does an artist starting out and finding his or her or their place, how do they move on?
That's a fantastic question. I think that artists need to communicate with other artists, and by doing so, it will help you flush out a lot of the other noise that you really don't need. But you definitely need other artists to communicate with. So that's a good question. I don't think I want to. It's all different now. I mean, we have so much to deal with. So I don't know.
I was just going to, I just remembered, for a while there, we were thinking we were just going to have a band playing here. And I realized how much we would have missed if we had done that. But at the time, it seemed like really great, a great idea. Kind of a gallery talk, it's all music.
Really is. And I really enjoy the energy from you guys. I mean, it's so beautiful, and it just really pepped me up tremendously. Just to see for you to break away from your busy schedule, and I know it is very busy, to come in and pass the energy around. I love it.
Well said.
I have a question, and just sort of a silly one maybe, but I was trying to visualize you painting, and I wondered if your studio sounded like a jazz festival while you're painting.
Oh, goodness, I probably would I would be overwhelmed, but I know that given my quiet space and all hell would break loose. I just love it.
Something I learned from talking to you, though, which I didn't expect, but makes, I guess, perfect sense. You love classical music as much as you love jazz.
Yes. Yes. I love classical music.
And when's that show gonna be?
I love it.
I know you work in a lot of different media. I have one of your screen prints at home, and I see, all these lovely etchings and paintings. Do you have a favorite medium that you work in?
I have a favorite painting, but what happens is I have to move on. So I can only love it for so long. So that's, the beauty of it is just, I know that I'm communicating, and I know that in the back of my mind, I say, okay, you spend so much time, loving the piece and being proud of the fact that you created this work of art. Okay, what's next? So that's the beauty of it. I have to move on.
I have this piece right here, Jazz in Tacoma Section, and it always gives me
Oh.
great joy.
Oh,
I wonder now that I see some of your more vivid paintings, what's the difference in what you're hearing, the mood that you're in, when you would do something small, contained, and more sepia tone, than something expansive and full of color and vibrance?
yeah, jazz, for an example, Jazz at Tacoma Station is first was a painting, and then I did, but it doesn't happen that way all the time. Sometimes an etching may be the first. If I'm doing etchings, then of course that's going to be, maybe I want to explore as far as painting is concerned. It requires a whole different circumstance as far as creating. So the beauty of it is the challenge. I say to myself, okay, now where are you going to go? What are you going to do with as far as how you going to deviate from maybe an etching, and then you go create a painting, and it's a challenge. So I guess I get to that point. I'm ready for the challenge. Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Yes, in the back there. Hold on.
She's getting her exercise.
Did your mother get to see your success?
What was that?
Did your mother get to see your success in your work, in your painting?
For about 2 minutes. And then I had to, okay, wake up, move on. Can't spend too much time there. Yeah.
I should say that Joe grew up in Montgomery County, his early years in Montgomery County with his mom and dad. His dad is worked in a grocery store in Chevy Chase, Maryland, which is where they were living when he was born and where he lived for most of his life. But when, by the time he did graduate and go into art full time, she did get to see, for instance, the opening of the gallery and the opening of a few shows and things like that. So she had an opportunity to see that, even though she had wanted him to get out of the house and get a job. That it did turn out well for him.
Hey, thanks for talking to us. Do you find that you have periods where you lack motivation to create art? And if so, how do you get out of that?
You said the print.
No, sometimes do you find yourself lacking the motivation to create art?
Oh,
And how do you get out of that?
If I don't have the motivation, I won't create art. I wait until I compile the energy. And that takes, I have to go in stages to get there, because number one, I have to be motivated. So it has to be something that something that will move me in a way and inspire me. That's the grassroots of everything. I mean, I have to be inspired. And just to create work, that's what I ran away from advertising art. Because when I was at Sears and Roebuck, my art director came in, I need this, this, and this. And I can't say to him, oh, I have to get inspiration. I'm sorry, I can't create this. So.
Well, Joe, thank you. You've been an inspiration to us.
Thank you very much.